Hey guys, we had a great class last night and it was so much fun, and I really appreciate all of you for coming out to the Coming Arts Center and participating in this beginning watercolor class. And so in class number 2, we had a lot of questions that I wanted to answer from class 1, and then just, thinking about it over the week. But before I want to get into that, I want to talk about our mindset talk that we had at our beginning of the class. So as artists and as people that are learning a new creative skill, we are often faced with these automatic negative thoughts that come into our head. These drunk monkeys, these whatever we want to call them, ants, whatever it is. But they come into our head and they prevent us from treating ourselves in a loving manner as the inner child artist that we are. So I want to encourage us to this week focus on treating ourselves like that toddler that's learning how to walk. We want to encourage, we want to celebrate every little motion that takes that child closer to the goal of walking, right? If we were to talk to that baby child, that precious little thing, as we sometimes talk to ourselves in our head, and be like, you might as well sit down. You'll never be the best walker in the world. You're probably never going to run a marathon. You're just going to suck. Like, I don't even know why you're trying, right? Let's not do that to ourselves. Let's get into the habit of creating a safe headspace for ourselves to learn these creative pursuits, because it's worth it. And one of the things that we talked about in class, I have been a huge fan of Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, for a long time. It has changed my life, literally, by doing the exercises. And one of them that I do on a daily basis is my morning pages. And it's a journaling exercise that I do in the morning, first thing, and freehand dump what's in my head when I wake up down into my journal. But I also use my journal to jot down anything that's creative, that comes up, that I want to remember for later. And I often will literally wake up with a fully formed idea for my business or my work or a painting scheme, or even sometimes it's like something in the house that needs to get done, and I have this whole plan. My brain works, I sleep. It's wonderful. But if I don't write it down right away, I don't remember it. So I definitely recommend journaling. So if you want to work on your mindset this week, try adding some journaling into your practice. Now, we had so many fantastic questions in our class this week, and I want to go over a few of them. The first, I think, one of the most fundamental questions that we talked about was about maintaining clean water when we're working. So a lot of watercolor artists have a system where it's, 2 cups of water, and one is supposed to be for clean water when you put it into your paints, and the other one is supposed to be for when you wash off your paintbrush. I guess that works for people. It never worked for me. I just ended up with 2 dirty cups of water every single time. Okay, so we're talking about how to maintain clean water when you're working. And this is what I do. I have kind of a 3-cup system. I know it seems kind of excessive, but it's really not. Hear me out. So I have my clean water, right? I've been waiting for videos to upload, so I just painted my fingernails. I never do that, but I just did it. It was fun. So you have your clean water. This little cup, this is what I have as my working water. So this is what I'm dipping into all the time, and I'm changing this constantly. So the 3rd cup that I have is my dump bucket. So when this is dirty, I dump, I refill with the clean water. It works out. Because I'm not having to get up and change my water constantly, I can go through probably half an hour or so where I'm changing my water a lot. but I'm doing it in one space. I'm not having to get up and down every single time. And sometimes that getting up and down can break your concentration enough or mess with your working time enough where it's not ideal. So this system works for me. Give it a try. But honestly, do whatever works for you, right? Whatever you can do to maintain clean water that's comfortable for you, that's how you should do it. So the next thing we talked about, not really a question, but maybe a reminder. So, and maybe a little bit of confusion from week 1. So we were talking about our palettes, right? How with watercolor, you can put your watercolor tube paints in your palette. You are not mixing your colors in this area. You're mixing your color here, here, here. In this palette, there's a removable thing. So you have a lot of different spaces to mix your paints. This is not where you mix your paints. This is where you store your paints that you are going to be working with every time. So what we've done, or what I've done, and what I encourage you to do, please do this, is to swatch your palette. So I took this section of my palette, right, this removable section, and I traced it on my watercolor paper. And then on my watercolor paper, I took in order my paints so that I could see where everything goes. Now, I will tell you, what I do is I group my primaries. So these are my warm primaries. These are my cool primaries. I group those on my corners so that I know. And then all of my convenience colors, I kind of put my warmer ones toward my warmer neutrals, or my warmer primaries, and my cooler ones toward my cooler primaries. Makes it really easy for me as I'm mixing between my swatch and my palette and its organization. It makes it easy for me to find the colors that I'm looking for. If you don't swatch your paints and you just put them in your palette, I guarantee that you're not going to remember which one is which later when you're going to paint. So please do this. And next week we will have the laminating machine at the Art Center for class. And so either before or after class, we can go ahead and get you laminated so that you're waterproof and wipeable, to have that in your paint palette all the time so you know what to do. A little tip though, every time you get a new paint set or markers or colored pencils or whatever else it is, make a swatch chart and label it with the name of the color at least, right? That way you know what colors you're looking for and how to access them every single time. So I love this question so much, and it really made me think about, is there another way to explain this that it makes maybe a little bit more sense? And so I had to really think about the feelings that I have about cool and warm colors, because I know that it's tricky, right? We always think of like warm colors, those are closer to yellow, right? Sunny, yellow, orange, yeah, warm colors. Cool colors are blue, right? But then we started talking about primary colors that can either be cool or warm. And so what does that mean? It's true that all of these colors can shift more toward the sunny side or more toward the cool side. But I wanted to think about it in maybe a little bit of a different way that could help us when we are looking at our colors and thinking about how those really work, cool or warm. So with our primaries, if we think about them based on the equator, really. So in class, we were all doing the same exercise, And some of the paintings looked very cool, mountain, crisp air kind of thing. And then there was this one that reminded me so much of the colors that I was using when I was painting on the beach in Punta Cana for my birthday. Right, that was fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. But the colors there are different. They are toward the warm side. And I have a feeling that when we're looking at warm and cool colors, if we think about them as being closer to the equator, more tropical, that kind of stuff, you're going to get these warmer colors. They're just different versus a more mountainy, northern, think Scandinavia, Toronto, Colorado. Those are going to be more cool colors. Now, can you have a sunset or a sunrise in the Bahamas or in the Dominican Republic or, Mexico or whatever? Of course, it's going to be gorgeous. But you can also have a sunrise and a sunset in Alaska or Colorado or Toronto or wherever where it's cold, or Scandinavia. And that's going to be beautiful too. But it will look different. We know when we look at something, we know the difference between a sunset in a tropical location versus a sunset in a cold location. So I was thinking that that could be a good way to think about cool and warm colors, making sure that you're thinking, okay, am I going to the beach or the mountains, right? Is it more tropical or is it a colder climate? So something like that could maybe help you a little bit when you're thinking about it. And remember to go back to class 1 where we swatched our warm and cool color palettes, our primaries, and we did our neutrals as well. So there are videos on that. Go check those out if you want to kind of get back in touch with how we did this and what those palettes look like. But we are diving more into the palette stuff as we get further along. The next question that we had was about how to tape down your paper. So if you are working with a watercolor block, it's going to be glued on your 4 sides with just a very narrow opening. So you don't have to tape down your paper for that particular style of watercolor paper. But if you're using loose paper or you want to have a board, this is how we do it. Now, we just talked about how we use a mat to determine what size of a painting we want to do. When you draw that out, just like literally tracing whatever size it is onto your watercolor paper, what I like to do before I tape it down is to just keep in mind that I need a bleed area. So anyone that's ever printed anything or had anything professionally printed, there is usually a bleed area where it's like, okay, well, this isn't really where you want detail or anything like that, but this is kind of an area where it might be seen if there's not color, and it might not be cohesive if it's not there. So we want to create a bleed area for ourselves when we are framing our artwork. So, for example, this, which was our class demo, I did this with the 8x10 mat. Now, I traced it, but you can see that there's a little bit of wiggle room on each side. So I use about 1/2 inch outside of that border that I tape my painting down. Either I'm taping it down to a board to paint on, or if I'm using a watercolor block, I will just simply tape it down. Now let me talk about tape for a second. So what I use every day for my regular taping down my paintings so that I can work on them is very simple and cheap masking tape. I buy this at either Home Depot or Lowe's. It's the Scotch brand. It is about $3 a roll. And it is not archival. It is not the kind of tape that you use for framing or for long-term use. This is for your everyday use when you're taping down your paper so that you can paint. The important thing with tape is that you want to make sure that the color of your tape is neutral when you're taping it down. So avoid the blue painter's tape, the bright green painter's tape, the washi tape with all the designs on it. Just avoid those. Get the most literally vanilla tape that you can get to use. So you're going to have your bleed area when you're taping your paper down to your board. Now, as far as boards go, so this is one of my very well used art boards. You can buy these everywhere, like that sells art supplies, but you don't actually need this. And I find this size with the scale of work that I do in general to be quite cumbersome. It's very big. So I want to make sure that you kind of think outside the box here a little bit. Yes, of course you can go and have, you know, plywood or whatever cut down at Home Depot or Lowe's. It's not very expensive to do. You can cut it down to whatever size you want. You can use those as boards. But there's also a great recycling tip here. So this is a piece of foam that I actually got when I ordered my mats and backer boards for doing my prints. So I will use this. It's not perfect. It's a little bit flimsy. But I'll use this to do a painting on because it's stiff enough for me to use it a couple of times, and at least I know that I've recycled it in some way. This is also a great opportunity to recycle your Amazon boxes. I know you'll have them. And then when you're doing multiple paintings at once and you are waiting for things to dry, you don't have to be like, oh no, I don't have a board to put this on. I guess I'll have to stop. I'm feeling inspired, but oh no, no board. No, that's just not true. Just recycle a little bit. It'll be fine. Just use whatever you have. Do that. So today in our exercise, we are looking at wet and wet painting. That means you need wet paper. Remember, when you're wetting your paper, it's okay to like lightly scrub your surface, because if little fingerprints are on there, they could disrupt how your paint absorbs into the paper. So a little scrub that helps with the sizing that's on the paper. It also helps with little oily fingerprints. In this exercise, and this is something that I saw in class a lot, even though I said, please don't use small brushes, I still saw small brushes, okay? So what I would recommend is, if you are doing an 8x10, start with like a 12 or 14 round brush. That's not important. This is my notes for myself. You know, anything too much smaller, I wouldn't go any smaller than like an 8 here. What the point of that is, our exercise today is wet on wet. It's about being loose. It's about being free. It's not about the details. When we are doing this, it's more like an underpainting. This is not the detail work yet. So please do not use a small brush. The reason, your brush, if it's too small, will not hold enough water in the barrel of the brush. All of these brushes will have a nice tip on them when they're wet. So you can do some detailing, but not a ton. I don't want you to be doing a ton of detailing right now, so use a bigger brush. So the exercise that we did in class number 2, you're going to need to check the next video. I will be going through the actual demo of what we've done. I didn't record in class that specific demo, but very similar, and we will be going through everything on that video. But this is the demo that we did in class. It's a very simple landscape. We're using wet on wet for all of the background, waiting for it to dry, and then adding some details. The important thing though is, and here's another sample that I did before that one. The important detail is we are using 3 colors, 3 primary colors. It doesn't matter if you choose cool, warm, or you go crazy and just pick whatever red, yellow, and blue that excites you in your paint set. So we did, or we are going to do in the next video that you're going to watch, right? I already did it, but you're going to watch it. Okay, so the warm color palette, the cool color palette, those are both the Daniel Smith ones that we swatched in the first class. We did the color wheel, we did the neutrals, all that stuff. So those are those 2 color palettes, right? So warm, cool. But then I got a little crazy and I picked some of the colors that I use a lot. And so this one is Cerulean, Quinacridone Gold, and Cad Red. So different results. And then I did, instead of a primary red, I did Burnt Sienna, which is a red brown on this one, with Cad Yellow, Pale, and Intense Blue, and got a completely different result. So it's time to play. It's time to get excited about using 3 colors, only 3 colors. Oh my gosh, it's so weird to see my fingernails painted. Anyway, 3 colors, your primaries, but getting creative with your primaries and doing the exercise over and over until it makes sense. Okay, watch the next video.